Today, before I teach you about Tony Browder and the Browder Files, which is real eye-opening, man. And the Browder Files is so informative until it was unreal. I mean, they teach you all about Thanksgiving and all the holidays and, and how things are really broke down and stuff. But that's Tony Browder or Anthony Browder and the Browder Files. And Tony Browder's got a lot of stuff on YouTube and stuff, but if they're not on YouTube anymore, it used to be a whole lot of stuff on YouTube before the government took over. When the government took over, a lot of stuff that was on there got taken off of there, and they monitored it and everything. So a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you now might not still be there by the time you're old enough to understand what you're looking at. So I'm giving you the name of the books because the books should still be around, okay? But there's, as I said, Tony Browder, and then there's Jewel Pookrum. Jewel Pookrum explains to you meddling, okay? She really gets deep into the meddling. Meddling is the chemical in your body that makes you dark. The darker skinned that you are, the more meddling that you have in your body. And the more meddling you have into your body, it is said that the closer that you are to God. Like the Dogon people, long before there was telescopes or anything, they knew all about the Milky Way and different planets and stuff like that. And they would say, how can people know this kind of stuff? It's impossible. But when the telescope was invented where they can actually see it, they found out that everything that they had been saying was right. Okay, so much for meddling and Jewel Pookrum. And then there's Dr. Africa and Africa and Holistic Health. You'll find a lot of things that in your health is different from what you're taught is good. Dr. Africa in African Holistic Health and Dr. Sebi. Now, Dr. Sebi was curing so many uncurable diseases and then he was publishing and putting out in the public that he could cure different things. They said, this man crazy. And they hauled him into court. They said, man, you can't be telling people this kind of stuff. There ain't no cure for these kind of things that you're saying that it's curable. So they hauled him into court in New York City. And he went into court and he won, okay? Dr. Sebi won the case. He was actually curing the uncurable. So like everything, it is said, I don't have no facts, so I can't say indefinite proof, but it is said they killed him, but like I said, I don't have no definite proof, but the man ended up dead, okay? So there you go. But before he did, he had proved that his theories that he had in his medical practices were correct, okay? And I'm going to tell you now, one of the things that all of us as a people need to learn is meditation. It is said that when you pray, you talk to God, and there is a God. They say, but when you meditate, God talks to you. And he's never wrong. All the inventions that has been made, and like even George Washington Carver, he used to say the plants talk to him. That's why he did so much with the peanut and different things. He did amass a bunch of things with him. And most of his work you can find at Henry Ford Museum in Michigan. Okay, it's in Dearborn, Michigan. They have a Henry Ford Museum that not only is his work, but the bus that Homegirl wouldn't move in and all that is there at the museum at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. But before I go into all of that, I have to go back into the days that I was traveling and going from door to door selling magazine subscriptions. Do you remember when I told you that Mr. Al Khan had explained to me the Holocaust and how all the Jewish people were killed and everybody had to flee, and he don't know where none of his family is, and that if I ever found any of his family and stuff, to let him know, and because they are properly kin to him. Well, I was in Kingston, New York. You know, I was up in Kingston, New York. I had went on what we call a spur. I had got good enough then that I could take part of the crew by myself and go to a town, and I would work that town while he could take a vacation or get away and take some time to himself with his wife. And anyway, I was in Kingston, New York, and what I used to do, I used to go rent an adding machine. So I go to an adding machine rental places, and I would rent the adding machine so that when people in the evening would bring in the business that they had done, I could add up all the different receipts and stuff so I can tell how much money they owed me and stuff. And I'd have a slip to put with it to know how much we did. Plus I could do the books and stuff at the end of the day. Anyway, the place that I rented from was owned by a guy by the name of Alcon, spelled A-L-K-O-N, just like Stanley Alcon. And I was so impressed, and I sat down and I talked to him and I told him about, I worked for a guy named Mr. Alcon. Oh, he got excited too because, like I said, in the Holocaust, all the people, they lost each other. Nobody knew where nobody was. And so he was happy that I had put him in contact with another possible family member of his, you know. Anyway, while I was in that town, I got into an argument with an individual, and I drew my hand back like I was going to slap him or hit him, and I didn't know that there was a law there in New York that you don't have to hit nobody. If you draw back to hit somebody, it's against the law. And that person called the police on me. The police come and got me and arrested me and took me to jail. And the little town of Kingston, New York. And in Kingston, everything that happens in the police department goes over the radio. Everybody in town knew who they arrested and what happened and what's going on. So anyway, the guy that I had rented the adding machine, he heard that I had got picked up. And the next day when I went to court, and I had called Mr. Alcon, and he had drove all night long to be there in court. And that was one thing about Mr. Alcon, getting off the subject for a minute. No matter what problems or what, man, that man, he could do anything. I wasn't afraid of anything, anywhere. All I had to do was call Mr. Alcon, and he would take care of it. Not only in New York, but anywhere that we went. I called Mr. Alcon, he would come, and the problem was solved. Anyway, when I went to court that next morning, Mr. Alcon had got there, and to show you how smart Mr. Alcon had got, Mr. Alcon had hired the lawyer who was the son-in-law of the judge that we were having that morning, you know, and to take care of the case, and the case got dismissed. But also in court that morning was the guy that I had rented the adding machine from. He had only met me one time, but he came to help me. Now, talk about a close-knit people, you know. Mr. Alcon told me one time, it was this guy that was a Jewish guy, young, good-looking guy and stuff. Mr. Alcon really didn't care for him, but because he was Jewish, he told me one time, he says, in our religion, he says, you see a person that needs help, another Jewish person, they need help, we have to take them something like 12 miles or something like that. Otherwise, we have to help them as much as we can, and then we got to turn them over to somebody else who can help them further. You know, that's why they came over here with nothing, little more than the clothes on their back they came over here with, and now they're one of the wealthiest people in America. And it came from all sticking together, and I got a chance to see that for myself. Now, going back a little further, going back to Mr. Spigner on the ranch in Paris, California, uh, where he grew all the food organically and stuff. And I had never seen or heard of organic food and stuff. Do you remember me telling you that he was Seventh-day Adventist and that he went to church on Saturday? Do you remember when I told you about Mr. Spagner and how I thought that he was the weirdest guy that I'd ever met in my life, about him not eating any pork or growing his food organically, and he went to church on Saturday because he was Seventh-day Adventist and stuff? Well, come to find out as I got older, for number one, if you look at your calendar, and if you look at the seventh day on the calendar, you'll see that the seventh day is Saturday, okay? And he explained to me how archaeologically, how the days were created, and how it's true, the seventh day is on Saturday. But even more importantly than that, one day Oprah Winfrey on her television show, and you can Google this, she discovered a thing called the Blue Zone. And the Blue Zone are the people all over the world, the different groups of people that live to be over 100 years old, and what they ate and how they live to be over 100 years old. Well, there's only one Blue Zone in America, and that Blue Zone is in Loma Linda, California. And Loma Linda, California is kind of like the headquarters for the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the Seventh-day Adventist people live longer than any other people in America. And there was about 5 or 6 blue zones around the world that different people lived to be over 100 years old. In America, the Seventh-day Adventists, as I told you, remember I told you the stuff that Mr. Spagner didn't eat? Well, they was pretty much vegetarians and stuff, for the most part, okay? They were vegetarians. But now see, though they ran into a wall for a while about vegetarianism, because people thought that because soybean was a plant, that it could be used in the vegetarian meal, because they can take soybean and they make all type. I've had soybean meat that tasted exactly like meat. I mean, you couldn't tell the difference between it and meat, and it was made out of soybean. But soybean was not made for human consumption. George Washington Carver took the soybean and he told Henry Ford, he says, and I told you, remember I told you that George Washington Carver used to say that the plants used to talk to him? Well, he told Henry Ford, and this is documented by, I can't think of his name now, but I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, he said, you take this plant, take this to your scientists, and plastic is made from the soybean. And most of the bumpers and dashboards and things that in automobiles today is made from that plastic that come from soybean. Soybean wasn't created for human consumption. And for a while, people was eating soybean thinking they was doing a vegetarian diet, and they was dying faster than the people who ate meat and stuff, And it was because soybean, they had a big soybean diet, and soybean was never created for human consumption. But he should be on YouTube, and he'll tell you about soybean. Anyway, Mr. Spagner, who I thought was so crazy, I learned was a genius. Not only, as I told you, I lived long enough to see, I went to visit him right before he died, and he probably would have lived longer than the 93 years that he did live And in reality, he was actually 92. But Mr. Spagner, being the individual that he is, he believed that the 9 months gestation period that it took for you to be born should be included in your years alive. So he included that. So he was actually 92 years old. But we're going to say, for his sake, because I don't argue with him, because he proved to be a genius, as he was 93. Okay? But all the things that he used to say turned out to be true. You see, I lived a few doors down from him out in the country, and he had 3 boys that were my age.